intro, right?
Yeah. Hello and welcome to Flick This Movie.
Let's do that again. I was clearing my throat. Hang on. Let's do a 3 count with silence.
Okay. 1, 2. Oh, great. Now this is going to make the video.
Especially when you're all like, what was that with that face?
Oh, gosh. Hello and welcome to Flick This Movie. I'm Brian Glass.
And I'm Rene Garcia.
Today we're going to be reviewing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the latest movie from Quentin Tarantino. Rene, do you have a trailer queued up?
I do. Let's get that rolling.
Please.
I'm Rick Dalton. It's my pleasure, Mr. Schwartz.
Call me Marvin. Put it there. That your son?
No, it's my stunt double, Cliff Booth.
Last night we watched a Rick Dalton double feature. All the shooting. I love that stuff, you know, with the killing.
A lot of killing.
Anybody order fried sauerkraut?
Okay, enough.
I never remember if I'm supposed to look this way or this way.
It doesn't matter, Brian. Yeah, that way. I look this way. Whatever you think is the way to look the opposite.
Okay.
Yeah. Try it. You got it, man. You got it.
Awesome, dude. Well, shall we dig
I
into
should
this
rearrange the thing in
Just for
post.
that-
Just,
just for that
swoop
shot.
my face down there.
Worth it. Worth the joke.
Indeed. So who's asking whom here? You're asking me first, right?
I think I'm supposed to get into this one first.
No, you did the intro.
Okay.
That's how it works. You do the intro, you ask the other person.
Did you start us off with Lion King?
Yes, I
guess I
did.
did. Oh, all right. Renee.
Because I did the first one. What was the first one? Stuber?
No, Stuber is the second
No,
one.
Spider-Man. Spider-Man. I did Spider-Man. You did Stuber. I did Lion King. And then
Renee,
now
I have a question for you. Why don't you tell us your thoughts about this movie?
I will, Brian. But before we do that, I'd just like to remind everyone to please subscribe and like our video. We are a very small but feisty channel with very high aspirations. So it would really help us if you engaged with us. Now, on to my spoiler-free review.
Please.
What was your question?
What'd you think of the movie?
Okay, what did I think of the movie? So let's back up here. Let's take a step back. So if I'm not invited by the studio, which I'm not for Sony because they kicked me off their list a long time ago, I normally go.
You're feisty.
What? Who? Me?
You're feisty.
Yes, too feisty. I'm just in the audience, just yelling, shaking my fist. This is how I'd rewrite this scene, everybody. And Brian comes out in the back with a little, like a turntable.
Rewrite.
Yeah, they got annoyed with me and with us very quickly. Anyway, so I normally watch in a big theater, either at a press screening or when I go on my own and pay for the movie. This time, because I'm kind of sick of where my big theater is located and the parking is horrible and all that, so I went to a smaller one, and it's like a much old, it's like a time capsule of a theater. Mm-hmm. You know, not like the 40s or anything, but we'll say late 90s onward, when theaters could still be like one aisle theaters. Do you know what I'm talking about, Brian? It has one center aisle.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right? And it's not stadium seating. So like the back row, it's like way in the back, and like the screen feels like a 60-inch TV. You know what I mean? Like you're in your living room, but it's just mounted really high.
Right.
And the seats are all like it's for a different proportioned American. It's like, oh, this is what Americans were like
40 years ago.
2 decades ago. 2 decades and 40 pounds ago. Right?
Yeah.
And then the seats are all like sunk in because of a million asses have sat in them. Anyway, so the I don't know if it has to do with the type of theater or what, but it's a different kind of clientele. Or maybe it's because the theater is smaller, and I felt like I was then forced to sit closer to people, and I don't know what it is about the people I was with. I mean, this is one data point, so you can't really have a trend, right? But from this one data point, there's like a family to my left, and I was in the second to back row, and they're on the other side of the aisle, but I can clearly hear their conversation like crystal clear, and they're just talking to each other, like essentially throughout the whole movie. Thank God there were loud parts in the movie that kind of drowned them out, but because they had like kids, they were trying to explain to the kids like, you know, what's going on and why certain things are important and stuff. And was like, oh my God. And then there was a dude, I don't know if he was like waiting for a drug deal to go down or something, but he was like 4 rows and to my right ahead of me. And he just kept getting up. Like he got up like every 10, 15 minutes. It was very weird. And then this other girl who was kind of hot, she like sat 4 rows ahead of me, 4 or 5 rows ahead of me. And then towards the end of the movie, like we'll say the last act, she got up to sit in the row in front of me. I was like, what is this? What is happening? You know what I mean? Just inexplicable things happening in this theater while I was watching. Now,
Okay.
I don't know why I brought any of this up. Just this was my experience trying to watch this movie. Okay, so maybe I was distracted from the movie and I wasn't able to appreciate it as much as I think maybe I should have or could have. Now, with that said, I don't know what I'm missing because it's getting good reviews from all of my journo friends, and I'm seeing stuff online that this is supposed to be a good movie, but I walked away not having been entertained, essentially. Yeah! Shh. Technology.
Vibrate.
There you go. Anyway, yeah, I walked away not having been entertained. Now, that's not to say I didn't see, you know, talent on screen, and that's not to say I wasn't told an interesting story, but it wasn't a story that had meaning to me, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think I was subjected to interesting vignettes, almost like a compilation of well-shot and well-acted scenes, but I couldn't put everything together into something that had any kind of impact on me. Which is, I mean, it's weird, and so I'm just wondering, what was I missing? I feel like I am an observant person, and I know what a good story is. I didn't get it here. I'll say that it only became interesting to me in the climax, right? At the height of the third act. So let's take another step back. I like Tarantino, right? And I think the things that I like about Tarantino were missing here. And what I like about Tarantino are the interesting characters who have interesting dialogue, who do interesting things. And I guess minus the interesting things, I think the other 2 parts are missing. And, well, I don't know. Maybe they're all there, but there just wasn't enough to, like, make the formula work, I guess is what I'm getting at. Like, you can't be an interesting character without doing something interesting or maybe having interesting dialogue. Does this make sense, Brian? I'm just kind of, like, building this argument
absolutely.
on the fly.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there are things that these characters do that, like, it's like the foundation of something interesting, and it never gets there. There's nothing built on it. So then it's just this foundation of potential. So, for instance, and this is in the trailer, so I don't think I'm spoiling anything, but there's a confrontation between Brad Pitt's character, Cliff, and Bruce Lee, right? And I thought, okay, well, that was an interesting scene, and we can talk about some of the ancillary fallout of that, like ancillary thoughts, I guess,
Sure.
Later. But, you know, what was the point of that? Like, how does that play into the greater film? I mean, I can kind of stretch the meaning and say, oh, well, because they showed us this, it makes this other later scene, like we have an understanding of how it's going to play out. I don't know. But, you know, I ended up kind of getting bored towards the, like, we'll say before the final act. I know I was yawning, and I was just like, I think I was mentally exhausted. You and I have talked about having to contain so much information at once, and how that can be exhausting for an audience member. So Brian and I, we're working on another project about screenwriting, and one of the challenges for me as the writer of that script was, will the audience remember this detail I set up in page 5 later on page 92, right? And if not, then maybe I don't need to set it up at page 5. Maybe I can just set it up later and just say, hey, this happened. And so I felt that kind of cumbersomeness. I don't know if there's a smaller word to say of cumbersome.
I think it's appropriate for that word, though.
Okay. I felt that throughout this film, waiting for everything to like tie in. Like, I one of my favorite Tarantino movies is Jackie Brown. And one of the criticisms when it came out was, it's like, it's kind of slow in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
But what he's doing is he's letting you live with these characters so that you understand who they are, right? And I ended up appreciating that later, right? And here I was waiting for that same appreciation, waiting for it to gel together, and it never does for me. So there you go, Brian. That's my initial take.
Well,
how about you?
I've been waiting for weeks now to see if we're going to get to a movie that we are diametrically opposed on, and we can finally have an argument, that is deserving of our friendship. And unfortunately, today will not be that day, because I felt very similarly to this movie. It's interesting. After the movie, I was thinking about a conversation I had with a friend of mine, and she was
me?
talking.
Am I the friend? Oh,
you are not a female. So she was talking to me about her experience in watching Avengers Endgame, and she was complaining that it was just terrible. It didn't make any sense. And I come to find out it's because she hadn't seen any of the movies before it. Okay, that makes sense to me, right? I mean, I personally loved Endgame, but I have to grant her a point that it's a standalone movie without all the knowledge of what came before. It doesn't really function in the same way as a standalone. So while I was watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I very quickly became aware that I was not familiar with all of the source material. The movie seems to be paying homage to a lot of different pieces, back probably from the 60s, 50s. And it's just not my area of expertise. It's well known that Tarantino is a movie aficionado. He's got a deep movie knowledge, et cetera, and I can respect that. And I think that viewers who were intimately aware of that period might be delighted by this movie. I, however, was not, because it did not speak to me at all. The movie is not a sequel. It didn't wrap up a bunch of different storylines from its predecessors. It's a standalone movie, and I need to look at it like that. And, you mentioned the kind of slow burn that happens in some of the Tarantino movies, whether it's Jackie Brown, where it's the first half hour, whether it's, Inglourious Basterds, where it's the first part of a scene that just, grows and grows in tension and builds on it. I mean, those movies, man, I have patience when it comes to movies like that. I love the slow burn. And quite honestly, the first half hour, I was delighting in this movie myself. I just thought, like, wow, this is going to be really cool. I'm really getting a good understanding of what's going on with Leo's character Rick and with Brad's character Cliff. I can kind of see where they're going. It's kind of like there's a cool sort of Zelig feel to it, where I'm seeing these different characters and different parts, playing parts of parts. You know what I mean? I like that kind of meta-ness of it. We got the Wilhelm scream in one of the first scenes. I was like, oh, this is just cool. He's doing lots of things I really enjoy from Tarantino. And it kind of like never went anywhere. Like all this was being established, and then there were like these themes that were set up earlier, and I'll talk about them during the spoiler section. And I felt like they were going to grow organically, because that's what he does. He'll let something kind of let you digest it, and he'll slowly build, and before you know it, you've got like some really cool stuff happening. And this is a movie where there's no real tension throughout most of the movie at all. And I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be Quentin Tarantino's character study movie, and I'm on board for that. I'm okay as long as, he pulls through. Not every movie has to be kinetic like Pulp Fiction or Kill Bill. Not every movie has to be, building tension like Bastards or Django. But the themes that were set up as the primary drivers of this movie end up getting like sidelined by self-indulgent scenes and characters. I have a feeling, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of people who praise this movie and honor it for all those that came before it. I think these are people that, unfortunately, it feels like you're supposed to like this movie, and I'm not one of those people. I did not care for this movie at all. I think it was a rare Quentin Tarantino misfire. I think it's got 45 minutes or so of a good idea that's bloated into 2.5 long hours of beautifully shot, beautifully set, decorated, but a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
And that's my spoiler-free review, Renee. So are you going to flick it or are you going to grip it?
Flick it, man. Flick it hard.
Flick this movie.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We should probably develop some kind of like spoiler break thing.
Spoilers.
I'll just do interpretive dance.
What? Interpretive dance?
It smells bad.
Ooh.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you want to jump into the spoiler section a little bit? Dive
Well,
a little deeper?
I don't know what else there is to say. I don't think we actually need to go into the detail to illustrate what we just said. But, I mean, there's so much of this that I just don't understand why it was done. And maybe it's one of those things that it doesn't need, it's so almost inconsequential that it doesn't need explanation. But as someone who recognizes a choice was made, I seek understanding. You know what I mean? Like early on, Tarantino establishes this convention of the mini flashback, or like the narrator who explains, oh no, this is what really happened, or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, who is that voice? Who is this? Turns out it's Kurt Russell, right? And it's like, well, why is Kurt Russell? We find out that Kurt Russell is an actual character in the movie as well,
right? And
why is his character giving this weird narration to explain things throughout the movie? Like, why was that choice made? Just because he needed someone to explain it? Huh?
Not only that, but the things he's explaining were inconsequential. To me, who cares? Especially in the third act.
Yeah, totally, yeah. Absolutely. In the beginning, his first use of this narration is to talk about why, Brad Pitt drives Leonardo DiCaprio everywhere. Oh, he got his license revoked.
Sure.
Okay. Who cares? Why is that necessary? Right? Like, as someone who I've just been trained, not just as an audience member, but, as a writer, with setup payoff, right? There's all this setup, right? And it's like, is this important for me to remember? I don't know. So I'm just going to remember it and be exhausted throughout the whole movie because I'm allocating space in my brain to this thing. I was
okay with it early on.
What's that?
Because I was okay with it early on because I felt like it was establishing the theme of the movie, but it ended up.
What is the theme of the movie, Brian?
I mean, to me, I come from this always trying to interpret what's being said versus what does it all mean? And I mean, I felt like that's what I'm saying. That first 30-40 minutes was an interesting, visual way to tell, this duality of characters. The very first time we see Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, they're in the front seat, we're behind them, right, in the car, and you've got I think Brad's driving, Leo's here, and they have the name swapped, right. And I'm like, okay, so this is telling me now that I, the audience member, am in the back seat, facing forward. We're all going on this journey together, and I'm going to be kind of, fly on the wall, observing this journey that they're going to take. And they're switching the two of them. They're literally, supposed to be kind of doubles of each other, although I don't really see that at all personally, but whatever. It's Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
And so there's an interesting tie between the two characters. This duality, whereas one person kind of start, whereas one person kind of end. And I felt like that was something they were trying to set up early on, and they did it in some interesting ways that I was like, as someone who likes to dissect film, I really enjoyed. I like, there's a scene early on where they go and meet Al Pacino's wasted character, and
Schwarz.
I don't even want to say it because it's a waste. The whole thing was a waste.
Schwarz. Not Schwartz.
Yeah,
Schwarz.
because we have to make that. Maybe that was a reference to something I didn't get. I don't know, but it was. If it's not, okay. If it is, I don't care, and if it's not, then it was terrible. But anyway, so Brad Pitt. I guess I should use the character names. Rick and Cliff are given drinks at the bar, and Rick gets his drink. That's Leo's character, and he's got like these two small straws. I'm like, oh, okay. I noticed the two small straws, and then he splits them apart, and then he takes a drink from them. And then there's just a lot of these little things that are always about the two of them together or apart, and playing that off. And here we've got Leo's character, Rick. He's set up as this insecure guy in real life. He's got a mild stutter that comes and goes. He's paid to act tough, though, right? He's paid to act like Brad Pitt's character Cliff is in real life.
Yeah.
He's genuinely friends with Cliff. He takes care of him financially, tries to get him work, but he's a guy who's kind of out of control to some extent. He's got the car wreck. He's got the alcoholism thing. And Brad Pitt, on the other hand, is a man who's all about control. He's in control of his life. He's in control of Leo or Rick's psyche to a large extent, his schedule. He's disciplined. He's hit on by a hitchhiker early on, cute hitchhiker. He's going the wrong way, so he's not going to break his routine. I like that. I like the two are set up, but they're actually real friends. Cliff literally serves to serve Rick's needs. He never complains about what he's asked to do. They're friends that keep each other in check, but they're kind of codependent. And I think that notion of being inseparable comes off on screen, especially during that first act, in a really interesting way. And I thought it was going to continue, the blocking, the set design, and then it's really like it kind of detours. The movie detours for like 2 hours. And it's only once Rick decides after he gets married that they're going to split apart permanently that everything just goes way off the rails, and we have the full fantasy murder sequence, with the Manson cult people.
Right.
And only when they decide to reunite, we'll see you tomorrow after the ambulance, that they're kind of like back together as one whole person. So I know it's kind of like the beginnings of a thesis almost that I was seeing, because I don't feel like Quentin Tarantino ever really got there, but I felt like he had some parts that were brewing underneath all of this nonsense homage that was going on in the movie. I hate to say this because I think I've said this a couple of times already, but there's a better movie inside here. And I felt like if you just spend another 45 minutes on that and given us, what happens as a result of these two coming or going apart and becoming their own people, would have been more interesting. But to me, again, another wasted opportunity.
Yeah. I don't know what else to add there except to say that, wow, Brian, you really like studied this movie. It's like, you really got to the essence of these characters. I feel like you were an actor in another life. Seriously.
I really enjoy his stuff usually.
Okay.
Because I do feel like I'm kind of going in there prepped, like, okay, I know he's going to challenge me. What's he got going on here? Oh, I see how this is blocked. I see how this is staged. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, this guy's facing this way, but talking over here, whatever. It's like all this stuff interests me.
Sure.
And so that's why I guess it was such a letdown to watch the whole thing. And I was like, man, an hour and a half in, I'm looking at the watch thinking, oh
Totally.
my God, this has got so much longer to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing for me is here I am, I'm in the theater. The movie starts at 11. There are 30 minutes of trailers and commercials before the movie actually starts. And I knew the runtime. I looked it up online before I went. 2 hours and 41 minutes. I was like, and I already have this deficit of 30 minutes to make up. Dude, I didn't get out until like after 2:00.
Yeah.
I was there forever.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And it felt like twice as long.
that's what I'm saying. And then with all this crap happening around me, you know,
Well, why didn't you just move?
well, I didn't want to be, I didn't want to like draw attention to myself. Like, oh, this guy thinks he's too good to sit next to me. You know what I mean? That cause like another problem. So many
I'm that
problems
guy.
already, Brian.
Dude, I am that guy. I will move several times in a theater if I need to.
Well, you're also 6'2", so it's like when
I'm a
you're...
mere 6'1".
Okay, I'm just saying, Brian. People will think twice about messing with a bald, tall white dude who may or may not be covered in, Aryan Nation tattoos and brands.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying, but I don't agree.
So getting back to the whole setup thing, part of me thinks like maybe because, the conventional wisdom is to set up stuff overtly so that they get paid off. Tarantino was like, screw that. I'm going to anti-set up stuff. I'm just going to like do stuff. People are going to think it means something, and it's nothing. Like this whole, did Cliff kill his wife or didn't he?
Right. Play for jokes.
I mean, it's like a big thing. It gets its own scene.
Yeah.
And then nothing. And then, hey, is the owner of Spawn's Ranch, Greg or whatever his name is, played by Bruce Dern.
Yeah. Was it Greg?
I think it was Greg. We'll just call him Greg.
Okay.
Is he held against his will so that these hippies can take over his property? The TV's playing that ominous music, and then he's all shaking. And it's like, I'm fine. Right. I'm like, what the hell is this scene for? And it just goes on forever. I'm Cliff. It's like, like you're in an old folks home now all of a sudden. I'm like, what is this scene? Tell me this means something later.
Right.
And no, it means nothing.
Yeah. I like that it was done, to the point where everything she said was true.
Right. It subverted expectations.
Yeah. But I mean, okay.
Right.
But it's a 15-minute scene. It felt like 15. I don't know, maybe it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
But it felt like 15 minutes.
Just got sucked into a time warp.
Yeah, and at the end, if there's no... If that's not going to be the point, and if it was subverting expectations, then there should be some point to us watching it, though.
Right.
Like that should result in something in Brad Pitt's character happening.
Sure.
But there's nothing. There's nothing. I mean, it's all this loose setup for what happens late in the movie.
Well, I felt like, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, he busts out his flamethrower that we saw in the trailer here. He busts out his flamethrower at the end, and I felt like the whole sequence of Brad Pitt, of Cliff, having to go into the shed to get the parts to fix the television antenna on the roof was just to have a quick shot of the flamethrower leaning against the shed wall in the background. Just no focus on it at all. It's just this weird, looks like a really big nail gun leaning against the wall.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that was so that we would, have seen it. We would have this like kind of like peripheral mental image of it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's right. It's there in his shed. That way it didn't just seem like it came out of the ether at the end. And so it goes back to that whole, I know I'm supposed to overtly set things up as a filmmaker, but I'm just going to subtly set this thing up. It's, it's just there. It's just bric-a-brac, right?
Yeah.
So just weird choices that go against what we all understand to be entertainment. Does that make sense, Brian?
It does. And I mean, I think I'm okay with some of the ideas that he presents. Like, that same scene, Brad Pitt goes up on the roof, takes off his Brad Pitt shirt and looks Brad Pittish. And you think that Margot Robbie's character is going to see him out the window and have some sort of, reaction to him one way or the other. But we never see that. And we think that no one over there gets seen. But we find out in the end that Leo DiCaprio's character, Rick, does get seen, and it takes this horrific event for him to be, kind of accepted into this next echelon of possibilities.
Yeah.
But again, it kind of left me saying, so what?
Right.
You know, like, did I need to see that scene to tell me any of those things?
Right.
Seriously, like, could it have been cut out and it would have played just as well? Did he see something when he was up there that, you know, that would have helped tell part of this narrative? No.
Here's another thing. Here's a bigger thing that really just like throws me for a loop, and like we could have saved so much time if it had just been cut out. Margot Robbie's trip to the theater.
Yeah.
Right? Sharon Tate just watching her own movie.
Right.
And I'm like, why do we care about this?
Yeah.
That is the majority of what she does in this movie is goes to a movie theater and watches herself on the big screen with her nasty feet up on, the row on the seat backs in front of her.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless, again, it's a commentary on, you know, your life as you're being projected, as you're projecting your life, or versus the inner life that you have, and she's looking for some sort of, you know, what's the word I'm looking for, but
Fulfillment?
not fulfillment, but acceptance by the audience members. It's only when they react to her that she has fulfillment.
But is this her story?
But again, thematically, none of that makes sense. None of that drives this whole character exploration forward in a way that really makes a lot of sense. It's like, I feel like I'm pulling pieces together to make something out of it.
Exactly.
Versus a movie being given to me. And I shouldn't have to do the work, you know, to understand it. I should have to do the work to appreciate it a little bit more. And I feel like that work was not done by the person that should have done it, you know?
Yeah.
Andy needs an editor because we need to cut an hour out of this movie. It's just too damn long, at least. You know, you mentioned Margot Robbie's role in the movie. I didn't understand what she was doing in the movie. I didn't understand why Luke Perry was in the movie. I barely understood why, you know, Mike Mo as Bruce Lee was in the movie, other than just for a bit of comedy and to subvert your understanding of Bruce Lee and how cool he is.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we're gonna, you know, take a dead man down a notch.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know. I don't know why I need to. Huh?
For some reason, just out of the blue, hey, let's diminish this man's legend a little bit.
Yeah.
It's been long enough.
I guess it's your interpretation of them versus their reality. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm trying to draw something out of this movie. I'm like, you know, squeezing that turnip as hard as I can right now, and it's tough, man. Damian Lewis was in this movie, completely wasted. Didn't understand what he was doing there.
He was only there because he sort of looks like Steve McQueen.
So what? Why was Steve McQueen in the movie? Who cares? The whole thing was just was silly. Ugh.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I had a little sub theme here about direction that I was thinking about. Like, is that kind of where this movie's going? Because it's talking about meandering, going the wrong way in life. You know, in the beginning, after they meet with Al Pacino's character, they drive out of the parking lot, and you know, it's got one way, and they're driving the wrong way. I'm like, okay, you know, that's a choice he's making. Is that supposed to mean something to me? You know, am I watching Fellini here, or what am I watching? You know, Leo is always asking for directions. You know, when he's on set, he has no idea where he's going. Again, somewhere in here, dude.
Wow,
somewhere in here is a cool movie.
Look at you.
I was trying
feel like
so
I
need
to rewrite my script now just to like add some more meaning to it. Jesus.
You take the glass, and the brother just kind of.
That's it. Yeah, right there.
Oh man, all I can tell you is, I had no idea when this movie was going to end or how it was going to end. I just really, really wanted it to end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bingo.
That's all I have to say about this one, man.
Yeah, you know, I wasn't familiar with the Manson killings.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know that, you know, is this movie going to, you know, it's like a fictional take on the neighbors of that killing. And then they end up going to their house at the end. And I'm just like, oh, okay, they're just going to rewrite. It's like another Inglourious Bastards kind of thing where,
Fancy.
you know, it's a fairy tale or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that ending was, you know, it took me by surprise, and I'll say that it was a nice surprise. Probably the only part of this movie that I really enjoyed. Now,
Really?
there are little things that I did like, you know, like I thought Brad Pitt as a stuntman I think he really, I don't know any stuntmen. However, the things that he does in the film, outside of the studio, I thought was cool, right? It's like, oh yeah, you know what? These are the choices I would make as a person playing a stuntman, right? Like, I get in my car after driving the nice car around gently, right? I get in my car and I'm just doing crazy stuff, just speeding down Hollywood Boulevard or wherever he was. You can't do that anymore, folks, because there's so much traffic. You're better off walking or taking one of the million electrical scooters that just litter the city now. I don't know. You gotta come by, Brian. You drive through LA once and just see all the electric scooters. Everyone's on a scooter.
Nope. I'm done with LA.
Yeah. Anyway, and there's a scene when he has to go fix the TV antenna. That's right, folks. We used to have television antennas on our roofs. I'm old. Anyway, how does he get up there? He does like what might as well be parkour.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, is that really Brad Pitt? Yeah. That's pretty good. Right? And he looked pretty good in this movie as well. Like really in shape.
Great.
Yeah, he looked great.
I bought him as a stuntman as well, by the way.
Yeah.
And I have known a professional stuntman, and there's kind of that inner reserve to him that I did see here. I'm like, oh, this is just an interesting take. Listen, I have no problem with the acting at all.
Right.
I think a lot of the actors did really well. In fact, I thought Leo as Rick, where he's messing up his lines.
Oh, I love that scene.
And then where Rick acts poorly and you're watching it and they let the take be, but it was bad acting, and then he comes back and then he acts well. I'm like, this is all cool. I enjoy this. You know what I mean? I thought he did a terrific job.
Yeah, one of the things I guess I have a soft spot for are the, I don't know, we'll say behind the scenes scenes of movies. Like, I love seeing the making of stuff where actors break character because they start laughing or they can't get a line down or whatever it is. I love that. I just love the process of filmmaking, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I'm a creative as well, and I can just sympathize. Like, it just speaks to me. Like, I know what you're feeling. So those are the parts that I really enjoyed. One of the hippies, the brunette hippie, I thought she was hot. I'm trying to find other things I liked.
Margaret Qualley.
That's her name, Margaret Qualley. So, okay, actually,
because I thought she was like every movie or every scene she was in, she had a dynamism,
Yeah.
And I was like, that's just, I've never seen her before. She's
star
really
quality.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got it. Absolutely.
Right. She reminded me of Kristen Ritter.
Okay. Jessica Jones.
Jessica Jones.
Yeah, her and a little girl, Julia Butters.
Okay, so there you go. That's the other thing. I was like, what was the point of that little girl? What that long exchange? Like, I can see the meaning of that scene from Leonardo DiCaprio's, from Rick's point of view, where he's likening himself to the character in the book that he's reading. You know what I mean? And you just need this other person in the scene to talk to, right? To be a foil for that. But they made this girl have all this like attitude and gave her so much character. I thought, like, okay, whose character should be the one I need to concentrate on here? Right? I don't know. Oh, and one other thing, Brian. You said earlier that you shouldn't have to do the work to enjoy the art. And I don't know. I think there's some room for philosophical discussion on that point.
I think I'm happy to do half the work. Give me halfway.
Okay.
But I feel like this is not a 50-50. This is like 20-80, and I'm really trying to make this work. Because I think I gave it so much effort because it was Tarantino.
Right.
And if you told me this is a guy who made a movie, I would have been like, well, Renee, can you do next week's episode on your own? Because I have no interest in this movie. But I'm going to give it a shot because it's Quentin. And I can't tell you a movie I don't like of his until now. So
okay.
I didn't feel like it was a fair exchange.
That's an amazing observation, actually, that we are giving him so much leeway because it's him, but had this been some no-name guy, indie director or whatever, indie writer, would have been like, oh, well, this is why we don't watch independent movies, folks.
I like independent movies.
Usually garbage.
With the rare gem. And this
Exactly.
was not a rare gem.
All right, Brian. Well, I don't know what else to say about this. I mean, I think we can just keep bringing up point after point, but we're just going to be saying the exact same thing. So,
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just an uncultured heathen, and I don't have the faculties to realize the genius of this film, but with my my proletariat eyes, my plebeian eyes and tastes, I just didn't like this movie, so I will flick it.
No, I think don't even sell yourself short. You got to sell him short. He sold us a bill of goods on this one. Quentin, this was indulgent. And I know he's saying he's maybe done, or he's got one more movie in him or something like that. And God, I would hope he goes out on something better than this.
Like a Star Trek movie, right? Isn't that the rumor?
That's the rumor. Who knows? It might be interesting. That's been through so many hands already. I mean, there's nothing precious about it, so I'd be fine with that as long as he did a good movie again. But what is this? His 9th movie, I think. Yeah, I think it's 9. I like 8 out of 9, which is pretty terrific. For a director. So I will give him some leeway there. But this might win awards. Who knows? And if it won awards for set direction and art direction, I'd be totally cool with that. But otherwise, I think people have to skip this one, man. And even if the masses are saying so, I don't think it's in the movie. I think it's outside the movie that they're enjoying this one. So flick it.
Okay. Well, Brian, you want to see us off here?
Well, you kind of already did it early on, but like he said, subscribe. What's wrong with you people? All right. Yeah, we get the views. Fine. Subscribe. Leave a comment. We want to know what's on your mind. Did you like this movie? Would you flick this movie? Do you have a flicking opinion? Thank you for watching.
Goodbye.
Just fade to black. And one more thing.
Exactly. Say it, Brian.
I was thinking, again, in this rewrite session, one thing I really liked about Endgame is that it really paid dividends to the people who saw all those movies that came before. As a fan, I was like, oh, I love this. I got every reference. I mean, it was just enjoyment to watch that from start to finish for me. And this movie, in that it references all these other old movies and spaghetti westerns and whatever else. What if he just took this same idea, had the same characters of Cliff and Rick, but he somehow wove in like all the other 8 Tarantino movies, as like a capper on his career. What if he created a narrative that spanned those instead? You know what I mean? And talk about being self-referential and paying fan service. I don't know how he'd do it because they don't all necessarily live in the same world, but I think some of them could. I thought, what a cool way to finish a career as a director. If you say, I just want to cap it, I'm done. I'm going to make this kind of self-indulgent movie, but instead of referencing all these esoteric movies and shows that people may or may not have seen, I'm going to reward the people who like my movies. And there are a lot of people out there who would enjoy that. And I probably would have really liked that.
Okay. So let's explore this idea more, Brian. So are you saying that the fictional characters in his other films live in this new film, whatever it's called? We'll say it's still Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but instead of being set in the 60s, it's set, in present day?
It's just the world. They are in a world. And these 2 new characters, Brad Pitt and Leo, weave through this world that is occupied by these other characters.
Right. Well, I mean, when you say the world, I mean, it's still set in a time, right? Like modern times.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And so they're running into Sam Jackson as Jules.
Right.
And also running into him as whatever his name was in Jackie Brown.
Yeah. I don't know how he'd do it, but it would
Okay.
be interesting, and it would be something that, I mean, just the idea itself is more interesting to me than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was as a movie. Like, I don't know where they'd go with it, but that could be so fun.
Yeah.
And I think his work has got enough depth and enough substance to it that they could create something. He could very easily go back to his previous works and re-explore certain parts of it. I mean, I know a lot of characters get killed off, so that might be tough, but maybe what happens next, and that becomes part of this movie. What happens next with whoever's character and whichever of the movies. Again, I haven't really thought it through, but I just thought as an idea, it's more interesting to me than this movie was.
Okay. I mean, the way it would work in my mind is it would have to span a longer period, but I would love to see him play himself in a movie that spans his career, and rather than exploring the individual movies necessarily, it's this other story, totally fictional. Crazy things are happening because he's in Hollywood.
Right.
While he's filming these movies, and those actors from those movies are interacting with him in this weird way.
Perfect.
I'm just trying to play off, kind of riff on what you're saying, but
or he's like, he's playing Quentin Tarantino, but he's not really Quentin Tarantino. He's like
sure,
DVD.
right, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like a version of him that could have been, or could be, or people have perception of, and whatever growth happens as a result of his interactions with those other movies. Exactly.
Yeah. Did
Something
you see?
cool like that?
Did you see? Oh God, I can't remember what it's called. Something about a dangerous life, dangerous mind. It's a Chuck. No, my God, I gotta look this up, man.
We have to resort to the Google.
It's a George Clooney directed movie with Sam Rockwell. Dangerous.
Sounds familiar.
No, it's got dangerous in it. It's one of my favorite movies, and I can't remember. Danger. Where is it? It's probably not gonna have danger at all, and I'm gonna look like a moron. Oh, it's called Peace. Peace Man. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Oh.
Have you not seen this movie, Brian?
I don't think I saw it. No.
Okay. You got to watch it, and it's very similar to what you're talking about because it's about this real life guy who did the Gong Show, and he also claimed to have been like a CIA assassin.
Oh, I think I did see this. That's a while ago.
That's a long time ago, yeah.
Okay.
2002.
Okay.
And so there you go. It's basically the same concept we're talking about, except with Tarantino, maybe not a CIA assassin,
right.
obviously. But it's a fantastic movie, one of my favorites, and I recommend people to check it out. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up, Brian, before we?
But again, it doesn't even have to be like that highly fictionalized. It could be more stylized. Like it could be his struggles, and as in self-doubt, that comes from where his humble beginnings through not necessarily like telling like a historical narrative, but like recreating some of those things and just playing off them in a way that's interesting. And I don't know, to me there's something there that could have been a lot more fun than this movie was, and I would have probably really enjoyed that movie.
Totally.
I enjoyed the one you just mentioned.
Here's an example, right? Like as a writer, I'm constantly talking to myself and playing out scenes, and I pace my apartment, right, as I'm writing scenes or whatever.
Yeah.
So if I were to do the fictionalized version of this in the Tarantino-esque way that we're talking about, I wouldn't just film myself walking around my apartment. I would put myself suddenly in the scene that I'm imagining. With and I'm like telling the characters where to be or whatever, or like suddenly I'm sitting in the chair as one of the characters talking to the other character, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe there's a shot of me like standing in the corner, like looking at it, and then
and your inner dialogue is being narrated by Kurt Russell.
Exactly. Kurt Russell is there.
And you look at Kurt Russell like, okay, that's good. I can work with that. Just something like meta. Let's have fun with it.
Bingo.
Yeah, totally on board with something like that. Let's remake this movie.
Okay.
Quentin, remake this movie. Well, we like this idea better. Please.
Twice Upon a Time in Hollywood. And also, what is there? There seems to be some discrepancy on the title.
Uh-huh.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Because it's written different ways. You look at the poster.
Really?
I know, I think the official way is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But, all my journo friends were having a nice little laugh at that. And it's written differently on the same poster.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Interesting. Never noticed it. I read it as one continuous phrase, so.
Okay.
Huh.
Where's the ellipses?
Exactly. I don't care.
I know you don't care, Brian.
Make a better movie. That's all I have to say about that again.
All right. Let's say goodbye again.
Bye-bye.